What's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of Logicast, the Logical Gamers podcast. Tonight is a three-man show. It's your boy Esoteric, and I'm here with Blanca Kong and Gunna Eos. And where we're gonna discuss tonight is the remake of Silent Hill 2. We're going to speak on our thoughts, what the overall feeling of the game was about, um, what are the likes and dislikes, and so on and so forth. Now, just to give you guys a little backstory of Silent Hill 2, it was originally made in, I believe, September 25th of 2001, if I'm not mistaken, from what I researched prior to this segment. So it's been quite a few years, and they finally decided to create a remake for this game. Um, and I gotta say, in a nutshell, from my perspective, the game was amazing. But before I get into the reasons as to why I enjoyed the game, I am going to pass it off to my panelists and let them discuss what they liked, disliked about the game, and so on and so forth. So, with that being said, fellas, who is ready to start? Who wants to speak?
Okay, I'll go. I recently bought and finished the game. So I'm some kind of tardy to the party, as it were.
I like that.
Uh, but I was just on the fence about it. Like this, the Silent Hill game came out during a period where there were other games that were out that kind of caught my eye, and I'm always a little wary of remakes or remakes. This is not a remaster, a remake.
Mhm.
Ever since Final Fantasy VII, like I still hold a grudge against that game, and so I'm not quick to jump on it as
Mhm.
I normally would be. And this is like the latest Silent Hill entry in forever. So, and Konami's not the same Konami that was around when the original Silent Hill 2 came out. So, needless to say, I was pretty wary about it.
Mhm.
Um, then I started reading reviews about it, and Kong, whose opinion I trust, he was playing the game and he was telling me about it, and he was like, "Nah, man, it's shaping up to be a really good game." And I was like, "All right, when you beat it, let me know. Give me your give me the download, the 411 on it, and I'll kind of like see where I'm at that point." He eventually beats it. And he's like, "Yeah, I recommend this game. Like
Mhm.
it's good. It's a solid game. Combat's good. Puzzles are fun. Aesthetically, it's very nice." So I was like, all right, cool. I'll check it out. Christmas rolls around, our holiday sales. Games out for $50. I'm like, all right, it's now or never.
Mhm.
Um, could have gotten it digitally. That's really not my speed. I was like, all right, let's do this. $50. Let's go. So I bought it and I started playing it, and I recently beat it. Maybe a week ago. Yeah, a week ago. As of the
Okay.
recording of this video. Yeah, we're very, very recently. And I was like, wow, this game was actually really solid. It so if I had to compare it, which I know is not always the best thing to do, but if I had to compare it to like its polishedness compared to something like the Resident Evil 2 remake, it didn't hit that upper echelon for me, but it came
Okay.
really, really close. Um, the game looks great. I'm usually not a graphics snob, but like when I mean looks great, it kind of retained and also enhanced the creepy essence of what makes Silent Hill Silent Hill. So like it had the fog, it had the music, it had the creepiness with the radio going on,
Mhm.
and you knowing there's an enemy there. Like it had all of the like the vibes, as the kids say. Like it had all of that. Like it was creepy and scary, and
Mhm.
more so unnerving than scary. It didn't really have a lot of jump scare, which Silent Hill is known for not like jump scaring you. It was very creepy.
Yeah.
So quickly down the list. Combat, it was fine. It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game Callisto Protocol. Its combat kind of reminded me of that, especially its melee combat. So it was very
Okay.
when you entered combat, you have James has a dodge, kind of like the main character from Callisto, and you kind of have to predict where they're going to hit you. The problem with the melee combat is that because there were so few enemy types in the game, it became very predictable. So one I always remember is I don't know names, but the fucking weird mannequin shit that loves to wait in the corner and fucking sucker punch you in the back of the head. I hate that guy. Um,
think it's just
his
called the mannequin.
yeah, so the mannequin. Like, you got the mannequin, the nurse, and the fucking weird throw up monster. Those are your titular enemy types. Every time I would fight him, I would immediately pick up on the pattern that it was usually dodge, swing, swing, dodge, swing, swing, dodge, swing, swing, dodge, and he would that particular enemy would sometimes break it up by ducking. So if you swung, it would duck under your pipe or 4x4. But other than that, it was the same pattern. So this might be nitpicking a little bit too hard, but I would have liked to see the patterns kind of differentiate. The only enemy that did that was the nurse, because sometimes she would swing, and then she would swing and have a fucking spaz, and that would just throw me off because I'm expecting another swing and she doesn't do it. But the nurse you don't meet until mid game, and there's not a lot of the nurse enemy, but you see the mannequin and the fucking vomit monster. Those are the primary enemies you fight. So I mean that's nitpicking. It was fine, but the melee does get repetitive. I'm gonna throw that out there. And then obviously the perspective has changed. It's a over the shoulder as opposed to kind of like your fixed camera top down that the first one was. I don't mind it. That's just a modern aesthetic to make it in line with the Resident Evil games. I don't hate Konami for doing that. I think people would have raged if this was fixed camera angles. I think the modern gamer is just they can't they can't deal with that. So it's a modern concession that I was okay with accepting. So it didn't bother me that much. And then as far as the puzzles go, I had it on standard, so I can't speak to the higher difficulty of puzzle. But on standard, the puzzle still felt good. Like, thank God they didn't pull a Horizon Zero Dawn and fucking just like narrate what he should do to solve the puzzle. He kept his mouth shut and just let me solve the puzzle. And some of the puzzles were good. Um, what was my favorite one? Um, my favorite one had to be the last one, the last major one, the Cinderella, Snow White, and Little Mermaid puzzle, where you had to kind of figure out their route and then figure out the puzzle so they can all enter the door at the same time. I liked that one.
Okay.
So overall, the puzzles were really good. And last but not least, a critique that I've expressed to Kong before is especially on the hospital stage and the hotel stage, I felt there was a lot of busy work that they had you do. So what I mean by that is you had to go, like, for example, to the first floor to grab a key, to then go down to the second floor to unlock a door, to then go to the basement to get another key, to then go back to the third floor to do. So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of literally going up and down different floors of a building, and it was pretty prevalent in the hospital and the hotel. So to me, it's like, but they was spaced out enough that it didn't bother me. And then to round off my point, and I'll pass it along after this, the other world sections were my favorite sections because they were creepy, and the puzzles they had there were were fun. Like I liked the cube, and the later half of the other world section. So I do like that. So so I don't keep rambling. I'll pass it off to Kong, and then if I have any counters or rebuttals, I'll bring them up then. So that's it for now for me.
All right, Kong, go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah. So I played the game uh 3 or 4 months ago. I played it around the time it came out. I think a week after it came out, so in October, sometime in October. And my I didn't pay for the game. I stumbled on some trading credit at a local GameStop, and I didn't have like I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, okay, well, shit, Silent Hill 2 came out. I'm gonna move for a horror game. Fuck it, let's just grab it because it's not gonna cost me anything really. So I grab it and I start playing it, and then the first night, I could say that it impressed me greatly. I was like, this game feels really good, and I was surprised because two reasons. Reason one is modern gaming tends to disappoint me. There's a few exceptions, obviously, like Capcom remakes for the most part have been very good. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 is very good. We don't talk about RE3 remake. Um, I know the Dead Space remake was very good too. So, a part of me was like, all right, maybe it'll be good. But then again, it could just be a crappy cash in or whatever. And then the second reason why I had a low expectation for it was because the trailers and all of the promotional material leading up to the release of the game, I don't think showcased the game very well. So I
Okay.
already expected it to be kind of like mid tier at best. But as I'm playing it, I'm like, man, this feels pretty good. Like, do I? I kept thinking like, am I like brainwashed? Like, am I not? Can I not identify a bad game anymore? Like, I was questioning like whether or not this game was actually good. But as I kept playing, I was like, no, I think this game's good. Like, it looks good, it plays good, it sounds good. I know I kind of like it. And so the game took me about 25, 26 hours to finish. I did play on the hard difficulty. In regards to the combat, I could see why you guys. Well, I don't know about esoteric, but I know Gunnar had mentioned that the fighting felt a little repetitive. On hard, it was repetitive in the sense that the move pool for enemies and for you were very limited, but there was like layers of complexity. So, like when I fought Mannequin with the pipe or the piece of wood or whatever, it did mix me up. Like they had hyper moves or armor moves in hard mode at least. So the Mannequin
Oh,
could
okay.
do the grab move and I could hit it, but it would just go through and just grab me anyway. So I had to like be very careful. Like when I see that grab animation start up, I had to dodge
Oh,
immediately
it did
or
that
I
to me in
was gonna
standard
get
as well. I got caught by that
okay.
in standard. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so there was things like that, and at least in hard mode, the mannequin was very like the mannequin had a dodge maneuver as well, so it would definitely use that to like cross me up and then cross counter me. As a result, did that a few times, and of course they did more damage in hard mode, so it was more punishing. And then the nurses were very good at like mixing me up. Maybe I was just bad at melee combat, right? I don't know, but they were pretty good at like because they would have like sequences where they would stab once, then there would be sequences that where they would stab three times,
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
and so they would mix that up a little bit. And sometimes they would hard counter you as well.
Oh, yes,
Yes, yes, yes, yes.
the mega nurses, because everything had like a black variant. I don't.
The
Yeah,
ones with the knives,
Yeah, the
they
one
would just
knives.
like
Yeah,
flat out
yeah,
push you.
yeah,
yeah.
they would counter you and like, no, get off. I was like, oh, excuse the fuck out of me.
Hmm.
So that was cool. And then I enjoyed what they did with the mannequin enemies in the prison,
Oh
where they were
God.
able to like
Oh
climb the
God,
walls and stuff.
fucking
That
that creepy. That's creepy.
that was awesome. I love that's my favorite level in the game is the prison. Spoiler alert. There's going to be spoilers in this
Oh
conversation.
yeah,
That was
yeah. Well,
obvious because we're going to be talking about the game and what we liked.
Yeah.
So yeah, the prison was fantastic. The puzzles, I heard that there was some people complain about the puzzles being kind of samey or too close together. I could see that, and there were times where I felt like the puzzles were a little too. They were in close proximity of each other, and there wasn't like a big enough break in between certain puzzles, especially puzzles that were like pretty similar. So I understand that. I can't name any off the top of my head because I played it months ago. I don't remember it as well as I did if we had this conversation back in November. But
Hmm.
I can remember enough to be able to agree that that's probably a flaw, a minor one at best. Uh, what else? The graphics were great. I thought the visuals for the game was one of the best things they did in the game. The sound design was also very hot, top tier, S tier for me. The ambiance, it felt like when I was playing it, and I was playing with these very same headphones, I did get goosebumps in certain parts of the game. It was unsettling in certain parts where, not that I was like truly afraid, but like, it was a sense of like fear that you get when you play certain games, when you watch scary movies and stuff that like a lot of media can't really capture anymore. They have a hard time capturing that true sense of fear. Like when I played PT 10 years ago, that was like, it was a very fearful experience in a good way. The voice actors, I thought,
Yeah.
especially the gentleman who played James, his name is Luke Roberts. He played James Sunderland. He did an amazing job with the voice work and the animators, and I think Luke also did the motion capture as well. A lot of facial expressions, very
Hmm.
believable. Like it felt so polished and so well executed. I was just like, whenever there was a cutscene, I was excited to see what was going to happen, how James was going to respond to what was going on, and what was next. That rarely happens for me in video games. I think the last game that I could think of that had me on the edge of the seat as far as like character development and performance was the first Last of Us game. That's the only other game that I could think of that had me like that. Even Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2 remake, while the cutscenes were very good and the people who performed in those roles did extremely well, the writing wasn't anywhere near what I thought Silent Hill 2 was as far as like storytelling and the layers of storytelling. It was next level. And yeah, I would say that's my overall nutshell opinion. I thought the boss battles were really cool and they were all different. The only similar boss battle was the caged pussy in the hospital, and then the final boss. That was like kind of similar. Uh, but
Uh,
yeah, I love the game. I thought it was fantastic. Gunnar had mentioned that he wouldn't put it on the top echelon of like modern remakes. I would though. For me, it's an S tier game. It's right there with RE2 and RE4. So
Yeah, I mean, you guys has pretty much said a lot. But most of my points definitely align with
hey,
Blanca.
you had the opportunity to go first. You said
I know,
I'll
I
go
know,
first.
I know, I know. So I played it back in October during the whole Halloween stuff. I was streaming it. It was a whole Halloween themed segment where I played a bunch of horror games. And Blanca Kong suggested Silent Hill 2. I did a vote in the Discord, and they also voted for Silent Hill 2. So I gave it a go. Um, Now, I am going to preface this by saying that I did play the original Silent Hill 2. However, I didn't remember much about it. It was so long ago. I was practically a kid back then. So it was just one of those games that I completely just forgot how it went. Um, but this Silent Hill 2, the remake, was amazing. I really enjoyed the atmosphere. I think one of the biggest qualities about it was the immersion. Just the ghost town that you're traveling through, the hotel, the jail was just crazy. Like I was very apprehensive with moving in the jail because of how dark and my encounter with the first mannequin that was crawling all over the walls. It was like, holy shit, what am I in for? Um, I'm pretty sure for those of you who was like tuning in, yeah, you guys was like, damn, you can see the expressions in his face with like how reluctant he is to kind of going further into the jail. Um, One of the biggest pluses about the game is the whole psychological theme. The whole thing with going through James's trials and tribulations of Silent Hill, and then finding out what happens at the end as to why all of these things are happening. A lot of the enemies are, if I'm not mistaken, apparitions of his psyche. Um, so that was another thing too. The famous Pyramid Head was another apparition of his psychological mishaps and things that's going on in his head. Um, the characters, the interactions between them, I absolutely agree, Kong. the narrative, the dialogue, the voice acting was elite. Um, One of the things that was like the opposite for me, and I do acknowledge that it was very simplistic. It didn't do anything groundbreaking, but I have to say that the combat was super enjoyable for me. Like just going upside the enemy's head with a crowbar, it just felt so satisfying. I don't know if it was the combination of how impactful it felt on the DualSense controller, along with the squelching sounds that the enemies was making as you was hitting them, and the fact that you could repeatedly hit on them over and over and over again. It felt so satisfying. Like it was limit. There was a limited amount of times where I utilized my gun because the melee was just so. It was just a satisfaction with it where it just made me want to use it even more. Um, one of the things that did annoy me was Maria. I believe that was her name. She was like a representation of his wife and so on. Don't want to get too far into that. She was the biggest annoyance of the game. It was just certain things she was saying that just annoyed the hell out of me. If she was in person, I'd be very like upset and not want to be bothered with her. Um, you know, the dynamics between not only James and her, but also him and Eddie, him and I think Laura was the little girl,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what the other character was. I believe her name was maybe Amy or something like that. Uh,
Angela.
Angela. Okay, her name was Angela. Like the dialogues between them was like just crazy, and also the having to peel back the layers of what was going on with each person and why they were in Silent Hill was just amazing. Um, it was just the puzzles were pretty fun. They felt very classic. It kind of gave me the Resident Evil vibe with some of the puzzles that were displayed in the like the originals and the remakes as well. Um, the one I found most enjoyable was you was in this enclosed space, you was locked in there, and then they just had a bunch of like etchings on the walls that you had to pretty much kind of walk around and figure out the different pieces in order to like I forgot what it was that you had to plug it into, probably some type of device, and that allowed for the door to open. Another one was the hanging, the one where you had to pretty much piece the stories together.
Oh, complete the stories.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
had to complete the stories and the judgment between each one, and decide which gallows you wanted to hang yourself in to like open up the pillars. I mean, not the pillars, to
I think
open up the passageway.
the point of that one, because it's fresher in my mind, so I remember it,
Hmm.
was to pick the gallows of the person who was justified
And
in
what
what
they
they
did,
did.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it was just puzzles like that was like super engaging and super fun, and the fact that it tied a story in between it was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. um and yeah, the boss battles were pretty good. I felt like there weren't really a lot of them. I think there was maybe like four if I could count. um it was the main boss. It was the abstract daddy, the one that you called the pussy cage, the cage pussy. Um, and I think that's the only three I can remember. I don't think there
They
was.
had mini bosses like the hotel when you get the I think it's Snow White or something from the fireplace and the big I don't even know what
Oh
the
yeah,
fuck. That was another enemy type
that
too.
was towards the end,
Yeah.
but that was the same enemy that you fought that was like underground, and they were kind of like
Yeah, but
climbing. It was that
yeah,
Yeah, that
same
was a
that was
boss
the
enemy.
one.
battle. That was a boss battle.
Yeah, I
Yeah, because you
guess. Yeah,
had to fight them to progress it.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah,
but
that
like
makes
And
sense.
major
then
bosses, you're right. Pyramid
you
Head.
had two pyramid heads to fight too.
That's
That was
true.
another boss battle.
That's
Yeah.
true. But it seemed like they were like more towards like most of them was more towards like the end, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you had several encounters with Pyramid Head. Um, so yeah, I mean overall, the game, in my opinion, it definitely was. either a 9 pushing 10 out of 10. Like the game, it again, it didn't do anything groundbreaking, but all the elements that were in place that were put together, it just made it one hell of a game, and one hell of an experience. Um, so yeah, like
I mean,
I agree with Kong. It's definitely S tier in my opinion.
yeah, and this is a good like kind of a of example of why when it comes to these games, you I will never say someone, oh, you should play it yourself before making a decision. Games are expensive nowadays,
Oh yeah.
so that's a little bit easier said than done. But I will tell people to kind of do your own research and do a thorough research. Don't listen to the first YouTuber you see. Don't listen to the first IGN article you read. Do
Mm-hmm.
your research because if I was to listen to someone like the for lack of a better word, I'll call it internet noise around this game, I would have written the game off as like, oh, this game is just, it's going to be bad. It's going to have some things that I'm not interested in. Aesthetically, it's not going to look nice, blah, 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 in certain aspects. If you know, you know. Um, but no, like listening to someone, you know, Kong's opinion, who I do trust, and then like just kind of like sifting through, looking away from mainstream media articles and kind of like the rage bait YouTube channels, and kind of like, okay, is the video game good? Like, is this a solid video game?
Yeah.
And through the different sources, learn, okay, it is. It is a good game. It's not a bad remake, a cheap remake. You know, this is a solid experience. I came to my own conclusion that yes, it is. So, you know, this is not necessarily related to the aspect of the game, but just, you know, be careful when listening to kind of noise surrounding games. You know, you don't want it to steer you away from a potentially good title, which Silent Hill 2 is definitely. I would not have mind paying $70 for the game. I paid 50 for it, but I could have seen myself paying 70 for it. And with, I can't say that for a lot of games I played last year in 2024.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. You know, especially with the quality of games that are coming out as of late, there is a reluctance for people who are like, well, if I'm going to spend my money on a game, it has to be something that's good. But there's a lot of variables that come into play when picking said game. Like you have to know what is it that you actually like, what is it that you actually enjoy. Um, forget about the FOMO. Don't worry about that. If you think it's a game that you're not gonna be entertained by, don't buy it. Um, and also to Gunna's point, like just the dealing with the noise. There are some people who have incentives to say whether or not this game is really good or this game is really bad. So you'll have to just find the opinion of someone who will pretty much give it to you point blank. They're just going to give you the bare bones. They're going to elaborate as to what it is that they liked about the game. What is it that they think you may like about the game if they know you personally, um, and like certain concerns about the game that they think you might not like. So yeah, it's very important to definitely be able to discern what's constructive information versus like fluff, I would like to call it.
Yeah, yeah, big time, big time.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's worth getting into the controversy, right?
I was gonna ask
Controversy.
that. Like, what was the controversy behind this
So
game?
basic, I mean, from what I've read, at least there might have been more stuff, but basically, there was stuff like I mentioned before, the advertising and the promotion of the game. I don't think they did a good job. I think
Hmm.
I'd have to
they,
agree with that.
they
Yeah.
didn't really capture the good parts of Silent Hill, at least from a promotional standpoint. It didn't make me want to buy the game. It actually made me not want to buy the game, honestly. It just so happened that I decided to give it a go. But
Hmm.
a lot of the noise was around the female characters and how they weren't attractive. And I can't say that I agree. I When I first saw Maria, I was like, okay, Maria's kind of hot. Um, but it wasn't like the character wasn't. It wasn't like an anime game where like proportions are exaggerated and they got big eyes and they look. You know what I mean? Like they look like just people, right? It's similar criticism that Ghost of Tsushima got, where it's like, oh, it's a fantastic game, but the characters are kind of ugly, and it's like they just look like people. They just look normal people. Like they don't look ugly to me. You know, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
so weird. It's kind of just a Coomer take, honestly, and I hate to say that because then it's like it justifies certain people that don't need any justification, but like it kind of is. It's like I don't know.
It, it,
And
it,
then people had made mod. I'm sorry, this would be the last point. There were mods made to like pretty up the characters, and I looked at the mods, and I didn't. Well, I played on PS5, so that there was no mods for me to use. But I looked at the mods, and yeah, the mods made the characters look more attractive, but like it, it
but
didn't make sense because the characters A never looked more attractive in the original game, really, and B these are like people who are traumatized and like they suffer from like real mental illness. Like they don't, like it doesn't make sense. So anyway, I'll let you respond. You kind of like wanted to cut in a few times.
no,
So
no,
go ahead.
you kind of hit the nail on the head because first of all there was two female not protagonists. There was female characters in the game. One of which who was the ideal wife of the main character of James, of what he personified her to be, should she have not been ill. And then the other one was dealing with some real physical abuse. So for them to take the second character and doll them up, that's kind of counterproductive to the whole story arc of that character. Like she's supposed to look distraught. She's supposed to look as if like she's disheveled, as if she don't know her head from her ass because she's been through a lot. And if you made her sexy, I mean, they could have played to it in reverse where she was dressing provocative and she was trying to seduce James and whatnot because her upbringing, that's all she knew. She felt that with her um her father and brother, with what they did to her, she probably tried to use that as a means to kind of uh, uh, rationalize the psychological trauma she was going through and been like provocative,
Like
seducing
a
James
defense
and what.
mechanism.
Yeah, but that wasn't the role that she played. She acknowledged what she was going through. It had an adverse reaction to her besides what I just mentioned, and they generated the character in a sense of like, even if you didn't know the story, when my first encounter of her, she looked like she had an issue. It looked like there was something wrong with her, and they got that down to the T. And Maria, she had a little bit of cleavage. She was wearing the vibrant colors and whatnot, but she was a little she was a tad bit modest in her the way that she conducted herself in like a slight bit, because after this was the personification of his wife. So he wanted her to look this way, but I'm pretty sure that he wanted her to conduct herself a certain type of way as well. So I think they definitely hit the nail on the head with both those characters, um, and as well as the other ones as too. Like Eddie was like really weird, um, and Laura was just Laura. Like she was a kid that was in pure bliss because nothing was affecting her within Silent Hill. So they hit all the characters properly. They got them right. I don't know why did any alterations would have been needed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, because I had to look back because it's the last time I played Silent Hill 2, other than the PlayStation version, was the, I guess, HD port on PlayStation 3.
Okay.
So that was the earliest I played it again. And I went back and looked, and yeah, there is a difference. Um, I guess one can argue. I'm just playing devil's advocate to
Mm-hmm.
kind of just be that. I agree with you guys. TLDR, I didn't really care. Sure, you can make the argument fine, I guess. If you want to mod it, fine, it's your game.
Yeah.
Have at it. I'm a big believer in mod the shit out of your game if you whatever. But I didn't really care.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna play devil's advocate because fuck it, why not? They did look. Both the characters did look very different in the PlayStation 3 one, which is essentially the PlayStation 2. So I'm just gonna say the PlayStation 2 one. So the argument was, well, why change them when they did look, I guess. God, it sounds stupid playing devil's advocate because I care so little. But why make them less, I guess, conventionally attractive when they look this way in the PlayStation 2 one and you wanted to make a faithful remake? That's the argument I saw. And if you do take a look at like their models or their characters in the PlayStation 2 version, they do look different. That they do. They do.
I agree that
Like
they
I
look
would.
different, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that they look super hot and sexy. It's
Yeah.
like I really like I don't think so. I mean, yeah, they look different, and that different might mean better in this context depending who you ask, and that's fine if you hold
Hmm.
that opinion. Like legitimately, I don't care either way, but like it's fine if you believe that. But this game, okay, so the remake, when you compare it 1 to 1 to the PS2 version of the game, this one had a lot more to offer as far as like gameplay length, as far as combat, as far as I think just more polished storytelling.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's a better product, and it's a lot of it is because Silent Hill 2 was an old PS2 game, so it was a product of its time, and at the time it was an amazing game.
Yeah.
yeah.
So not to take anything away from that, but I think Team Bloober took what they made in 2000 or what they published in 2001 and really I think seamlessly modernized it to where it didn't bastardize the original concept of the first game.
Hmm.
So I think they did a great job, and I'm not saying that you're saying they didn't, but the whole like female character conversation, I get it. There are examples of it. Look what they did to Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2. I see it and I understand
Yeah.
that it's a thing, but like I don't know if this is one. And it might be right. Like for all I know, there was hidden motives within the
Yeah.
writing
I
team.
yeah. Yeah.
That could be the case, right? But let's and just for the sake of argument, I'll agree. So let's just say that that's what happened. That one of the writers or one of the modelers modeled this character after herself, and that was her like that was her calling card or her Easter egg. Like, oh, the character looks like me. And then it just happens that the internet batched the character and is like, oh,
Hmm.
this bitch is ugly or whatever. Let's say that happened. At, oh, in a large picture scale, does it matter? Like the game is so good in so many other aspects. I almost don't care if that happened. You know what I mean? Like it's just so
Yeah, I agree with you.
water
Yeah.
under the bridge kind
Yeah.
of an issue. And that to me, it's like no, it's not that different than like developers in the past putting like messages in the hidden areas in the game as like happy birthday son or whatever. Like that's those
Yeah.
Easter eggs existed, so it's not like these people aren't allowed to take liberties. Some liberties are probably more egregious than others, but like if that's the case, then I mean I'm fine with it only because the rest of the game was really really good. So it's like
Yeah.
it's forgivable to me if that happened. I don't know if it did, and probably we'll never know unless we
Yeah.
work there, during
Yeah.
the development.
Yeah. But
So
and also to add to that, like, okay, let's say if again to you know go on your side pertaining to the devil's advocate, let's say that was the case, and the masses who were complaining, what was the product of them modding those characters? Like, did they moderate them to the original style of the PS2
no,
version, but with upgraded graphics, or
no,
was it more of a
they just prettied them up, right?
Yeah.
yeah? So
From
it's
what I've
like
seen, it's that they made their faces narrower because what's not Maria.
Angela.
Yeah,
mhm,
she had a very boxy face. In that like um if you don't mod it. So
mhm,
a lot of the flack was on her model specifically, One, because she's the first character other than James you're introduced to
Mm,
canonically in the game, and she's the only other female. Well, no, she's the third one of two in the game.
yeah.
So like I saw a lot of mods of her, and a lot of it pretty much was just like a narrower face, softer eyes, like fuller lips, stuff like that, because they couldn't transpose the original model because they're not using the original models from even the HD port of the on the PS3. So it's brand new models, so they work with what they have. So that's what I saw. It was a lot of that.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Because the reason why I asked is because if your point is going to be, well, the characters look nothing like the original, then like whatever mods that you generate should kind of cater to the original. But if you're doing anything outside of your argument, then it's like you're just speaking just to speak. Like you're just making a complaint
I,
for something that you're not really trying to do anything about. But
I'm sure that was a thing. The modding is a huge thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were more outrageous mods that gave them like different hair colors, bust size, all that
hmm
stuff. But the ones I saw were keeping it the same, just I guess softening the features.
understood.
That pretty much.
Gotcha,
I
And
think
let me
gotcha.
just say this last thing too. If and we did an episode on this maybe a year or two ago about modding. If it's a single player game and you want to mod it for whatever reason, if you want
Yeah,
to have cheats or cosmetic stuff, go crazy. I don't care, right? Because you're not affecting my gameplay.
yeah.
My stance then is the same as it is now. If you're
hmm
modding and cheating on a multiplayer game where you're affecting other people's experience, I'm not okay with that. But yeah, if you want to mod your characters to be naked or to change their clothes or whatever, go crazy. But I think the general art style that they decided to go with worked for what the game is. So
Yeah,
I was okay with it.
I
Same.
I agree as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it
But
yeah.
that was it really. I didn't see anything else about it because it wasn't like some like Star Wars Outlaw or Dragon Age Veilguard where the game is like, oh, this game is just mediocre to bad. The Silent Hill game was a very competent, very respectful, and very well done remake of the original. Like it's one of those things where I would still say like if you ever want to play the original, play it because it has a different feel because they're using fundamentally different control schemes. Silent Hill 2 is like the old Resident Evil where everything was fixed camera
Tank
angles
controls.
and could tank. So like if you want to play that like the original still stands up for that experience. But if you just want to play Silent Hill 2 and like what's this game that people, because you have your big horror game, 3, and you have your Silent Hill. Those were like Nintendo and Sega of horror back in the day.
hmm
If you want to play like, okay, I hear people talk about Resident Evil, but what's this Silent Hill about? The remake's a good place to start. And I know gaming is filled with remakes and remasters predominantly nowadays, but I wouldn't mind if they do it again. Maybe the original, maybe OG Silent Hill. I'm a fan of 3, but I don't see that happening. And then Silent Hill starts to get a little shaky after 4. So I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
they
see.
have like
But I
Homecoming, and then they have like the one for the
and
PSP.
Origins, yeah. So it gets a little funky. They're doing new stuff with Silent Hill. They had like a demo. There's supposedly a new entry in the Silent Hill series coming out on the horizon.
Okay.
We'll see. Um, but hey, look, if they want to revisit the first one again, I really liked the first one. I thought the first one was great. We'll see. Blooper team has shown that they're competent and they're respectful of the OG media. So I wouldn't mind them tackling the first or even the third game. But that's to be determined. I think this one did well. I don't have any numbers, but I think this one did well. It well enough. We'll see. We'll see. But if it doesn't go immediately on sale like a Ubisoft title, it did all right. Um, but yeah, I mean that's kind of my overall thoughts on it. Like I don't regret the 50 I paid on it. I would have paid 70 it just came out at a bad time in terms of games for me. But yeah, if anybody's on the fence about it, check it out. They have the difficulty levels. You can change the combat to make it easier or harder, separate from the puzzles. So if like puzzles aren't really your thing, you can make them super easy. If combat isn't your thing, you can make that super easy. Vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to options. Um,
If you want to
so yeah, check it out.
if you want to increase the immersiveness, you can turn off the radio noise so that you're unaware of the enemies being nearby. So it has a lot of, customization in terms of like how you want to experience the game.
Yep.
Um, but I also
And
want
if
to.
you're a trophy hunter, one more thing, if you're a trophy hunter, there's a trophy to beat the game using only the pipe. That should be fun.
Oh my god, the bosses I would be concerned about, like just beating them with a lead pipe or whatnot. Those enemies I had to use guns on and whatnot. But yeah, I just wanted to
I was
stick.
gonna say real quick,
Hmm.
the game sold as of October 11, which is 3 days in, sold over 1 million copies, so it did very well. Because we're
Okay.
talking about 3 months, three
Yeah,
to
and
four
I,
months
I
later.
imagine the budget is not as intense as some of these other games.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I had to, for like my fellow Street Fighter fans out there, if I had to equate Silent Hill 2 to a character, I would equate them to Guile because Guile is such a simplistic fighter in terms of like all the move sets that he has. He only has like two special moves, but yet he makes it work. And that's pretty much what Silent Hill 2 did. Like they took all these elements which were pretty, they were, again, I said it earlier during the episode that they weren't groundbreaking, but they took these elements and enhanced them to a point where it just everything just worked. It was like the perfect ensemble, and um, I'm really, if they do plan on remaking 1 and 3, I look forward to it. If they're going to have their hand into this new iteration that will come out, it, if or whenever it does come out, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I honestly think that this game uh, will pay homage to not only the people who've played the original, but it also will pretty much inspire, if they give it a try, uh, new people who are coming into the franchise and looking forward to the other sequels and prequels and whatnot. So yeah, Silent Hill 2 is a very very enjoyable game. Yep.
Sorry, I thought somebody else had more stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I'd agree. But I will say that some of the criticisms around it, I can understand. I do feel like the game did drag a little bit. It felt like it felt maybe a tad too long, almost. Because for me, at least, I was playing on hard. Maybe this has something to do with it, but I can only play in bursts of like 3 to 4 hours. After about 4 hours of playing a game, I had to take a break. Um, it it didn't it immersed me, but it was kind of like a it's one of those games where like you have to stop at a good point where you feel like you could pick up where you left off safely the next time you play it. So like, because you could be in the middle of like figuring out a puzzle, and if you for some reason have to get away from the game at that point, you're kind of doing a disservice to yourself in the future because the future you will play the game and you're like, I don't remember what the fuck I was doing,
Yeah.
and like it'll take longer for you to warm up and kind of figure out where you are and where you need to go and stuff. So it's definitely a game that you're not going to finish in one sit down. Like that's not happening. It's a very long game, and I think like when I got to the prison section, I thought that was the last part of
Me
the game.
too.
It felt
Same,
very
Me
same.
too. Me
end
too.
game. That felt like a really good stopping point. And I'm not mad that there was more game. Don't get me wrong. It's just it felt like it dragged a little too long. So that's a negative criticism. Although I'm not really all that mad about it. I was like, more game. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then like I heard complaints about the combat. There was too much combat in the game, and I could see that. I don't agree. I actually welcome the amount of combat. So for me, it was a positive. But if you compare it to the original Silent Hill 2, there was about quadruple the amount of combat in this game compared to the original. There was like 150 to 200% more enemies and more enemy encounters in this game than the original. And so for some people, that's a that's a turn off. They're like, no, I want the puzzles and I want the lore and stuff. And I get that, but I need combat personally. So for me, I was like, this is a welcome change. Um, and we still got a lot of lore and a lot of like puzzles. There was a good balance between the all the elements of the game: exploration, combat, and puzzles. Like it was a good three-way split between the amount of things you did there. I feel like maybe exploration got like the shorter end of the stick compared to the other two, but
Yeah,
it was still fine.
Yeah.
I think they
yeah.
executed the balance perfectly. So
I Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I just think, I don't know, it's really weird because again, some things that people were complaining about, I can see that with other games. Like I can see where the combat was a bit redundant. I can see where they had lack of enemies, like in terms of like enemy types and whatnot. Like I can see all those points, but for some reason, I don't know, it just worked with Silent Hill. I don't know what it was. It just worked. Like I shouldn't be having. Well, I mean, I should, but like normally when I'm just meleeing everything or using limited guns in a game, normally I'd probably be like, well, there's not enough going on, or if there's lack of enemy types, I'd be like, oh, that's not too much. But for some reason, Silent Hill 2 just worked. I can't explain it. I don't know why. It could be that maybe the immersion toppled everything. The psychological atmosphere of what was going on probably just made me kind of put blinders on to everything else. But I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it just worked. It,
I think it just struck a really good balance. I mean, it's just that they just nailed it. That's what I think. I think I'd imagine that the development team they played the fuck out of that game and they play tested everything to death.
mm,
So, and if that's the case, then yeah, good on you guys. And if they didn't, then fuck, you guys nailed it without testing it so much. But I get the feeling that they tested it quite a bit. Um, so I don't know. That's my impression. I have two more points, but I'll let you continue. I kind of cut in front of you
oh
on
no
that.
no no! I'm done with my points. So go ahead.
Did you have anything you want to add, Gunner? Before I
Um, yeah, I mean, I can only think as a guy who's played the two big ones, which were Resident Evil 2 and Silent Hill 2, because those get compared to a lot. I don't know if this is the consensus on the internet, but Silent Hill 2 was always known for its sparser combat, but creepier atmosphere. And Resident Evil was known as like the 90s style zombie, Night of the Living Dead, I gotta survive against the horde style game. So that's what
Yeah
made them different. Like Ari was your 90s diehard style like popcorn flick in a video game, and Silent Hill was like your it retrospective um introspective kind of like deep dive into human psychology with the occasional monster in it because it's still a video game. So it could be kind of old heads, kind of guys around our age that remember the original of both going, I don't remember a lot of combat, but I remember it being very creepy. And now it kind of feels like a more actiony game. That could be that. A more like current player, a modern player, that's not going to register them because this might be their first interaction with Silent Hill. So if you gave them old Silent Hill, they'd be like, "Oh, this shit is fucking boring. What do you mean? I just walk around a lot, read some notes, and then some chick tells me about how she loves me a lot. Ah, that's lame. I wanna shoot some zombies." So again, I think much like the the mechanics where now Silent Hill 2 is over the shoulder. It's just a modern consensus they had to kind of make, and they Kong's right. They did strike a good balance with still keeping the game atmospheric and creepy, but there was stuff to do. There was things to fight. Because I remember when I played the original, you get the rifle as your last weapon, And I remember I never used the rifle until the dual pyramid head. But
Yeah.
in this game,
Yeah.
I had more than enough ammo to actually use it. And that's probably more of a
Okay.
product of me paying on standard, but like that just goes to show how little combat was the focus in the original. It was just like save the rifle for pyramid head. That's it, because you're pretty much done with the game at that point. So I think that could be kind of where that feeling is coming from. I get it. I didn't mind it personally, but yeah, that was my like 2 cents about that particular topic.
So I do have a response before I mention my last point. Is to that I get like so okay. So back in 1995 to like 2000, 2001, 2002, there were a lot of horror games. But I say a lot. There was a handful, but yeah, the big two were RE and Silent Hill,
Hmm.
and there was that differentiator between the two. It's like Resident Evil is known as the action, the heavier action game. Silent Hill is more about psychological horror, and I think they still hit
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
those notes with this game. But it, we're talking that was 25, 30 years ago now. The industry has changed a lot, and the market has changed. The amount of options we have has changed. There's a lot. I mean, a ton of different horror games
Yeah.
that are available to you now, especially on like Steam and stuff.
Hmm.
There's an insane amount of horror games, and so there's like horror games that kind of like check certain boxes. So I think now, like if Silent Hill 2 was like a one-to-one remake with just a graphical upgrade and re-recorded voice lines, I think it would have did fine, but it definitely would not have attracted a more mainstream audience. And I know that's like blasphemy because it's like, well, the modern audience is how we got to where games are bad now, and I agree with that. But I don't think this is a good example of that supports that idea. I think this is, if anything, the opposite. This is like, well, modern games can be very good. We just have to get the right people behind them, right? And if you want a horror experience where it's just about the psychology and the atmosphere, there's a lot of options.
Yeah.
Like, and there are options that Blooper Team has worked on, like Layers of Fear and the Blair Witch Project. Like they worked on these games, and these are pretty good horror games. So you have options in the market to play a game that scratches that itch. I think this game kind of checks all those boxes across the board, and that's why it was met with such success. So I hear what you're saying, and I know you're just kind of like arguing for like the hypothetical person
Yeah,
who
yeah,
might
yeah.
hold that opinion. I know it's not your opinion, but that's just my rebuttal or my response to it. That person wouldn't be wrong in having those opinions. It's just there's kind of a rhyme and reason as to why I think this game works really well today. So with that out the way, I think the final point I wanted to kind of like shine a light on was the impact of the story and the impact of the characters and the world. So when I beat the game, I beat it at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't go to sleep until about 5 a.m. that night because I was so like the game was just in my head. Like I couldn't let it go. And when I beat it, I got the Maria ending, and I was like, I have to know the other endings. Like I need to know.
Same. Did the same thing.
Yeah, you did the same thing on the stream. Like the game has a way of just getting in your head. It's
Hmm.
so good and it's so compelling. It's fuck. And once you start realizing what's actually happening in James's story, like this stuff isn't real. It's all in its head, and all of the um all of the story beats and the realization that spoiler alert, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, James actually killed his wife. You don't find that out really until the end of the game. I mean, there's hints, right? Maybe you'll figure it out
There
beforehand. But
definitely
like,
was a hint when like he first, because I had to boot up the game again and I played it, played the beginning.
Mhm. Yeah, they told you in the
You
beginning.
could vaguely see when he pulls up with the car, if I'm not mistaken, or was it
Yeah,
the
you can
end?
see the body in
Yeah, yeah,
the back seat. So like, there were hints there, right? But it's the beginning of the game.
yeah,
You're not
yeah.
gonna notice that. Um, and so it really impacted me. And even after watching all the endings and just really sitting there and thinking like, man, what a fucking story. That shit was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like then I found myself just kind of like reading forums and looking at other videos and like theory videos like, oh, what does this mean and what does that mean? And I was just that week that I finished the game, I was just my YouTube feed was just Silent Hill lore videos.
Same.
Um,
Same.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And the hidden meanings behind each enemy type, and I was like, that's so interesting. Like I had a blast watching you stream it and just like feeding you little like bits and pieces of lore as you were playing. You were like, I could just see the gears turning in your head. Like, what the fuck? This game is crazy.
Yeah.
That was really satisfying for me to absorb and learn, but also to like
Yeah.
watch you discover. It was like I was reliving the game through you. So
I enjoyed that because even afterwards, when I finished the game, I did the exact same thing during the stream. I was like, wait, hold up. We need to see all the other endings because I got the good ending, but I needed to see the other endings. Like one of my favorite ending, was the one where he's in the car and then he's speaking to Marie and you can somewhat see her and she's responding back. That it was just,
Mary,
yeah,
Mary.
Mary. And after he speaks to her and whatnot, he drives the car into the water. I was like, when I saw that, like right now, my paws are literally raising just speaking about it right now.
That to me is the best ending in the game. I agree, 100%. And would you believe it that I think that ending was a new end. It was a remix ending of one of the other
Yeah,
endings.
it was one of the new ones. Yeah, I think the other one
Yeah.
was the alien one. I think those were the two ones. One was a joke one, and the other one was that one that was a remake. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong.
Oh, there's like way more endings. There's like 8 endings.
No, no, no. But I mean, like the ones they um that they put into the game. They were like brand new endings that they put into this remake alone.
Well, the alien ending was they changed it and they modified it to make more sense in this game, but it was in the original,
Okay.
the alien ending. Yeah, from my understanding, I didn't get that ending back then, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll put a description in the chat of all the endings for if anybody wants to watch. And then I'll figure out which ones were because I believe from what I researched, it was two new endings that they added in addition to the other ones that they already had in the game. So,
Yeah, so the major difference with the car ending is, if I recall, right? I haven't seen these videos in a while, so it's like might be a little blurry, but the original one, he's reading the note
mm-hmm.
in the car, and it's just him in the note, right?
Yeah,
The newer ending, you actually see like the Mary actually touches his face and
yeah,
starts interacting with him in his mind, of course. And so that's the ending that we're talking about. He just drives like it goes black, and you just hear the car drive into the river, and it's like that's it. And it's like
yeah.
when I saw that ending, I was like, wow, like it really it landed, man. It was
Mm-hmm.
really good. Well,
Yeah.
well done. I was amazed. It was really good. And then the other ending that I thought was pretty cool was the one where he's on the raft and he's just like
Oh, to go
just
to the
rowing
yeah,
to find her,
yes,
or not to find her, but to find the
the
the the,
goddess.
the cult or whatever to try and bring her back. I was like, that's a sick ending too.
Yeah.
Like,
Which it's that's cool because it ties into the overall theme of Silent Hill. Because Silent Hill, it's involved with a cult, but you mostly deal with that in Silent Hill 1 and 3.
Yeah, because prior to that, it was like a Native American ground, right? It was like a sacred ground, and then
yeah, it was an Indian burial
they were
ground.
pushed.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were pushed off
and
the land.
and during like the Salem witch trial, that period in
Mm-hmm.
history, witches were killed in Silent Hill or women were killed for being witches, but the plot twist is they were actually witches. Um, and it's like there's like a whole cult thing, but it wasn't really in 2. 2 was just James's story,
Yeah.
but 1 and 3, they bring it back to the whole cult thing. So that's pretty cool that they like tie the overarching story of the first and third Silent Hill with the second one because it's all in the same place.
Yeah, man. It's a great universe, man. I've only played two, the original and this one, and I had to go back and watch videos of the original two. It had to have been because I was super young when I played it. Like that game is many
Yeah, when
years
that game
old.
came out, we were like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah,
We were kids. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I'll say, dude, the boss battles, the way they revamped the Eddie fight was
Hmm.
fucking incredible in this new game compared to the first game where it was kind of goofy and just bloop, with the crowbar and stuff. It was so stupid. It was fine for the time, but looking back, it's like, man, this is goofy as fuck. But this version
Hmm.
of the Eddie fight with it was really fun, really fun.
Man, just such an amazing game, man. Whew. So,
So we set to go, right? I think we're almost out of time, right?
yep, pretty much. We kind of went a little bit over. Do we have any last remarks, questions,
No,
comments?
check
Cause
it out if you got it. If you got the time and money, check it out. I'd say it's worth the play, worth the buy.
Yeah, it's highly recommended. I ended up getting it for free with store credit, but I if I paid 70 for it, I don't think I would regret it at all. It's gonna be sitting in my life. It's one of the few PS5 games I'm gonna hold on to, and I see myself revisiting.
Hmm.
The game has been semi frequently on sale online and at retailers as well. So if you see it on sale for $40 or even less, absolutely grab it. It's more than worth it.
or
Definitely.
to add to that, if you can acquire a used copy, where you can just test it out, give it a try, see if you enjoy it or not. If you don't, you can take it back, get your money back. You know, worst case scenario. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I personally think it was, as the rest of these guys said, I think it was a phenomenal game, well told story. Again, those endings, I'm still thinking about them. The pores are still raising on my skin. It was just phenomenal. But yeah, anyways, guys, this concludes the episode on Silent Hill 2 Remake. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you played it, what were your thoughts? Were you ever planning to play it? What ending did you unlock? And if you saw all the endings, which one did you think was the best? Um, what did you think about the whole conversation pertaining to the female protagonist looking terrible? Did they need a makeover? Do you think they did? Why or why not? Just let us know. Let us know what your thoughts were. Um, Also, I stream Monday, Friday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. EST on Logical Gamers TV on Twitch, so check that out. And also, we're going to have a bunch of our social media links listed below. As you can see underneath the gameplay footage, we have everything there. Check it out. Logical Gamers TV. You won't be disappointed. Um, so, I want to take this opportunity to thank Gunna Eos and Blanca Kong for the wonderful conversation about Silent Hill 2. We're probably going to be discussing it afterwards, so whatnot. That's how great of a game it is. Um, and I want to say thank you guys, the viewers, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and all that jazz. And with that being said, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. And last but certainly not least, if it ain't gaming, it ain't logical, folks. Peace.